I was halfway through changing the oil on my old Ford when I got the text that cracked my world in two. Grease on my fingers, sweat in my eyes. I felt the vibration in my pocket and pulled the phone out with one hand, expecting a message from the parts store or maybe my buddy Logan about poker night. Instead, I saw her name, Jenna. We hadn't spoken much that week. Not since Sunday night, when she slammed the bedroom door so hard a picture fell off the hallway wall. I didn't even bother picking it up. But this message, it wasn't an olive branch or a cold apology like she sometimes sent when she wanted something. It was a bullet wrapped in pink bubblegum. Moving away with my new man. Good luck paying the mortgage. Smiling face with smiling eyes. That emoji. That little yellow grin. Like it was a joke. Like I was supposed to laugh. My fingers froze on the screen. The hum of summer insects around the garage seemed to drop out of the air. For a second, I felt like I was watching someone else's life happen. Someone else's tragedy. Because surely my wife, the woman I married in a church pact with her entire damn family, hadn't just texted me that she was leaving me for another man. She didn't even call. Just a text. 9 years of marriage, 3 dogs, 2 miscarriages, and a shared mortgage, and she ended it all with a F*** ***** ing emoji. I didn't reply. Not at first. I just stood there, leaning against the edge of the car, the oil filter still half unscrewed in my hand, watching a droplet of black oil drip onto the garage floor. That oil had more warmth than what I felt in my chest. And then I started smiling. Because I wasn't surprised. Not really. See, for months now, maybe even longer, there'd been little signs. Barely noticeable things. Lipstick stains on the inside of her shirt collar. Showers taken at midnight when she thought I was asleep. That new gym membership she didn't want me to join with her. And the sudden interest in wine tastings with girls from work, even though I'd met exactly none of them in nearly a decade. Every time I asked questions, she had answers. Fast, polished, sharp. Answers that sounded so practiced it gave me chills. At first, I believed her. Then I started pretending I did. That was about 3 months ago. And during those 3 months, I'd been watching. I never told her I installed a tiny camera behind the framed photo in our kitchen, the one of us on our honeymoon in Key West. She never noticed it was angled a little too high. I never mentioned I kept the login to our joint accounts under a different email she didn't know existed, or that I'd redirected all paper statements to my office. It's funny how quickly a marriage stops being a partnership and turns into a quiet war. Jenna thought she was a general commanding from the shadows. What she didn't know was, I had the full battle map. She must have sent that message as she was packing, maybe already on the road, maybe sitting next to him. Some smug guy with a beard and a white smile, probably driving her toward some fantasy life where bills didn't matter and consequences didn't exist. She didn't know that earlier that week I'd pulled the trigger on a full asset shift. The deed to the house, legally transferred to my name alone after her signature from a past refinancing that she didn't remember, gave me the right. The savings account? Liquidated. The emergency funds? Moved into a high-security fund under my mom's maiden name as trustee. The credit cards, every single one she used, maxed out and canceled, replaced by fresh ones only I had access to. I looked at that message again. Read it 3 times. Let the words settle. Moving away with my new man. Good luck paying the mortgage. And then I did the most honest thing I could have done in that moment. I wiped my hand on a rag, opened the garage fridge, cracked open a beer, and replied, "Thanks for the heads up." It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't a bluff. It was a thank you for finally showing me her true face without the mask, for confirming everything I'd been suspecting but hating myself for suspecting, for giving me the green light to do what I needed to do. Because at that moment, standing in that sweltering garage, sipping a cold beer while the love of my life ran off with some mystery man, I didn't feel broken. I felt ready. The game wasn't over. No, it was just starting. And Jenna was about to realize she hadn't left a man behind. She'd created one. I didn't go after her. I didn't call. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch when I walked back inside the house and saw the coat rack by the door was missing her red jacket, the one she always wore to girls' night, and that I once thought made her look like something out of a movie. I just stood there, listening to the silence, letting it crawl up my spine like a cold hand from the grave. The dogs didn't bark. They didn't even seem to notice she was gone. Our black lab, Ranger, lay stretched across the living room rug like nothing had changed. Maybe because nothing had. She'd been gone long before she packed a bag. I walked through each room slowly. The house had this stillness. Not peaceful, not quiet, vacant. She'd taken a few clothes, that was obvious. Her makeup was still scattered across the bathroom counter like she never planned to be gone more than a weekend. She'd left her curling iron plugged in. Her perfume bottle tipped over. One of her heels was lying by itself near the closet, like it got kicked in a rush. Like she didn't care what she left behind. And maybe she didn't. But I did. I opened the closet and took down the shoebox I kept on the top shelf. Inside were all the things I hoped I'd never need. Printed statements, old texts, a copy of our prenup, and a flash drive labeled "in case." It wasn't just paranoia. It was insurance. The prenup was her idea back then. She had some family money coming. Just in case, she said, laughing. It's just smart, Trav. We'll never need it. Funny how that turned out. She never got a dime from her parents. But that document? Ironclad. No infidelity clause, but full financial protection on anything acquired before marriage. And here's the kicker. She waived alimony. All I had to do was prove she left me. She made it too easy. I sat on the couch, lit only by the dying sunlight bleeding through the blinds, and plugged the flash drive into my laptop. The folder labeled kitchen_CM had hours of footage, but I knew where to go. March 14th, 2 weeks ago, Friday night. She said she had dinner with her co-workers after a late client meeting. I remembered because she came home smelling like garlic and whiskey and wouldn't look me in the eye. I played the clip. My hands didn't shake. I watched her bring him in, some tall guy in a suit, probably late 30s, clearly comfortable. He went straight for the fridge like he'd done it before. She kissed him near the sink, giggling like a damn teenager. It was gross. And it was gold. I copied the footage, took screenshots, labeled, and archived everything. Not for revenge. Not yet. But to protect myself. Then I opened the banking app. Her name was still on one of the backup cards. A stupid oversight I'd meant to clean up last week. I watched in real time as she used it at a Chevron station 2 counties over. Then again 5 minutes later at a Starbucks. She was really running. So I locked the card, froze the linked accounts, called my bank, and asked to confirm that all new withdrawals required my signature, in person. They flagged her profile immediately. I had my attorney draft the notice of abandonment and file it that night through the emergency portal. My lawyer owed me a favor. Jenna had no idea what was coming. By midnight, she'd already tried calling me 4 times. I didn't pick up. At 12:11 a.m., she left a voicemail. Her voice, panicked, shrill, and crackling with confusion. Travis? What the hell is going on? I tried to use my card, and it declined. I couldn't even pay for gas. Did you do this? Travis, I swear to God, if you froze my money. I stopped listening. It was surreal, how quickly the power shifted. Less than a day. One message from her, and a whole deck of cards collapsed. I didn't feel powerful. I felt free. I poured myself a second beer. Sat back on the porch. Ranger curled up beside me. The summer air felt different. Like something heavy had lifted off the house. I knew she'd come back. Not because she missed me, not because she regretted it, but because she needed something. Gas money, access, leverage. But she wouldn't find what she left behind. That man was gone. And the next time she walked through that door, she'd be the one holding her breath. The knock came at 8:47 the next morning. Not the cautious kind, not hesitant. It was loud and titled. Like someone banging on the door they paid for. Like someone who thought the world still spun on their terms. I didn't answer right away. I watched her through the peephole first. Jenna. Hair a mess, eyes rimmed in leftover eyeliner, wearing the same clothes she must have driven off in. Her lips were moving, probably cursing under her breath. She had one hand on her hip, the other clenching a phone. No suitcase. Just a purse and a plastic grocery bag. That's all she managed to grab from whatever half-baked motel they'd spent the night in. She looked desperate. Good. When I opened the door, I didn't say a word. Just stood there in a clean t-shirt, fresh coffee in hand. letting the smell of pancakes and maple syrup drift past me like some Norman Rockwell painting. She hated that smell, said it made her nauseous. I made it anyway. Open the damn door wider, she snapped. We need to talk. I leaned against the frame. No, you need to talk. I'm just listening. She rolled her eyes, barged in like it was still her house. You shut down my card, she said, spinning on me. You can't do that, Travis. I couldn't even book an Uber. We had to walk 3 miles. I raised an eyebrow. We. She froze. Just a flicker. But I saw it. That flicker of panic. She hadn't meant to say we. She tried to cover it up, stepping closer, softening her voice. Look, I know you're angry, but I didn't mean for it to go down like that. I was upset. I sent a dumb text. We both said things, right? I just stared at her. Dead silent. She hated silence more than anything. She filled it the way people throw junk into a closet, fast, messy, hoping no one sees the chaos. I wasn't even leaving. It was just a few days to think. He just offered me a ride and I needed space. She was unraveling. Fast. What's his name? I asked calmly. She blinked. What? The guy. Your new man. What's his name? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Took a step back. It doesn't matter. Oh, but it does. If you're leaving your marriage for him, walking out on your house, your dogs, your whole damn life, I think his name matters. Travis. No, Jenna. You don't get to script this anymore. She flinched. The air between us crackled. She glanced at her phone, thumb hovering over the screen like she was texting someone in secret. Probably him. You've been spying on me, haven't you? She said suddenly. That's how you did it. You knew. You knew everything. I sipped my coffee. Didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Her face twisted, disgusted not at her betrayal but at my awareness of it. She couldn't handle not being in control. She could cheat, lie, steal. But the second she realized I wasn't some blind fool watching ESPN while she crept out in the night, that rattled her. I want access to my things, she said finally, voice tight. My clothes. My laptop. My jewelry. I have rights. I turned and walked down the hall without a word. Came back with a large moving box, sealed tight. Everything's in here. I packed it last night. You went through my stuff? No, Jenna. I sorted it. Big difference. She didn't reach for the box. Just stared at it like it had teeth. You're not even going to fight for me, she said. I suddenly wet. After all these years? That's when I laughed. A low, hollow sound. Not because anything was funny, but because that question was so goddamn insane. Fight for you? You sent me a text telling me to enjoy being broke while you ran off with another man. You left me. You made the decision. Now you want tears? Regret? A fight to win you back. She took a step forward, her voice trembling now. I didn't mean it like that. You don't understand. It's complicated. No, Jenna, I cut her off, quiet and final. It's simple. You made your choice. And I made mine. She stood there for a second longer, then bent down, grabbed the box with both hands, and stormed out the front door. I followed her to the porch. Oh, I said casually. By the way, your credit score is probably in the toilet. You might want to check that before you try to get your own place. She spun around. What the hell did you do? Thanks for the heads up, I said again, that same smirk playing on my lips. Her eyes narrowed. I saw it in her face, the slow realization that whatever game she thought she was playing, she had already lost the board. She didn't respond. Just turned, box in hand, and walked to the curb. No car. No ride. Just heat, sweat, and humiliation. And me? I stood there, sipping my coffee, watching her fade down the sidewalk like a ghost no one was mourning. She thought the fire had already burned out, but she didn't see the explosion coming. By the afternoon, the buzz had begun. It started with a Facebook post. A vague one. Jenna was never subtle, but she knew how to stir sympathy when she needed it. It read, "Some people will smile in your face while stabbing you in the back. I trusted you. I loved you. But you were planning this, weren't you?" I laughed when I saw it. That fake heartbreak typed from some stranger's couch, probably the same couch she let that guy unzip her dress on. Within minutes, the comments poured in. Old coworkers, wine night, friends, her yoga instructor. All feeding the fire. All assuming I'd thrown her out, that I'd hurt her, betrayed her, left her in the dust. One of them wrote, "Men are disgusting. Call me if you need anything, babe." Another, "Knew something was off about him the day I met him." Not a single one asked what had happened. They didn't want facts. They wanted drama. And Jenna? She was giving them a front row seat. What none of them knew, what she didn't even know yet, was that this was only part one of what I had in store. Because for months, while she was out pretending to do Pilates and coming home smelling like aftershave and motel soap, I've been putting pieces together. Quietly, patiently, like a puzzle no one else could see. It started with her laptop. 3 weeks ago, I noticed she left it on the dining table, lid cracked open. She was in the shower. Normally, I wouldn't care, but something pulled me toward it. A gut feeling. You don't stay married for nearly a decade without learning to listen when your instincts whisper look closer. Her email was open. Not the one we used for bills or Amazon orders. A secret one. New. And there it was, an entire thread of messages with a man named Cade. I remember the name like it was carved into stone. Dozens of emails. Flirty at first. Then graphic. Then personal. And then one, 2 weeks back, that made me stop cold. I hate this house. I hate him. When you pick me up, don't knock. Just text. I'll be waiting. I took screenshots. All of them. Saved copies to my encrypted drive. Didn't confront her. Didn't shout. Just watched. I wanted to see how far she'd fall if she thought I wasn't watching. By then, she'd already stopped sleeping in our bed every night. Some excuse about being too hot or needing space. She'd crash on the couch, phone face down, screen dimmed. But I already had the passwords. I'd watched her type them in more times than she realized. She was reckless. Confident. She thought I was the fool she molded over years, kind, routine, harmless. She forgot I used to be sharp. Before her. Before marriage dulled my edges. Before the everyday grind made me a shadow of the guy I used to be. But now? Now I was sharpening the knife again. And that morning, right after she left with the box and that ridiculous sense of entitlement, I made my first move. I called Kevin. Kevin's a private investigator. Not some trench coat cliché. He's ex-military, quiet, methodical, and, most importantly, cheap, because I helped him out of a real jam a few years back. He owed me. I told him everything in 5 minutes. Sent him the screenshots. The security cam footage. Her email headers. Her new number I traced through her secondary SIM card she thought I didn't know about. I want to know where they go. Where they sleep. How they spend, I said. Kevin didn't even blink. Give me 2 days. I hung up and checked the Ring camera logs. At 3:41 a.m., hours after she'd stormed off, she came back. Alone. Hair tied up, hoodie pulled low, like a teenager sneaking in through a window. She crept into the backyard. Tried the basement door. I watched in real time, rewinding the clip like a movie I already knew the ending to. She broke in. Well, not exactly broke in. She knew where I kept the spare key. Under the third flower pot by the deck. I never moved it. She knew I wouldn't. I watched her come inside, barefoot, phone light in hand. Walked straight to the bedroom. Straight to the safe under the bed. She tried the code. Twice. Failed. I changed it 2 days earlier. She stood up, cursed loud enough that Ranger barked from the hallway, then stormed out. Nothing taken. Just rage. She didn't even realize the ring Kim had picked up every second. Face, audio, the works. I saved the clip too. Titled it, Burglary Attempt. Owner Identified. You'd think that would be the end of it. That any rational person would cut their losses and disappear. But Jenna? Jenna's pride was a cancer. She couldn't handle being ignored. She couldn't handle losing. By noon, she called my mother. My mother. Told her I was unwell. Said I'd gone off the rails, was locking her out of the house, refusing to speak. Painted me like a violent, paranoid wreck. Mom called me trembling. I calmed her down. Told her everything. Then I sent her the same clips. She went silent. Then she said, "Don't give her another inch. She's not your wife anymore." And she was right. The woman I married died years ago. What stood in her place now was something else, something hollow, manipulative, and mean. But the best part? Jenna thought she still had time. She thought she could win the court of public opinion. That if she just cried loud enough, posted vague enough, twisted the story enough, people would turn on me. She didn't know I'd already contacted an attorney. that the paperwork had already been filed, that the sheriff's notice was scheduled to be served. And when it landed in her hand, it wouldn't be a slap. It would be a detonation. 3 days later, the storm broke, but not the one Jenna expected. She was still trying to spin her little tale, tugging at every thread of sympathy she could. Facebook was her battlefield, and she was firing blindly, daily posts hinting at betrayal, toxic love, her bravery for leaving a controlling man. The comments were full of clueless cheerleaders throwing her pity party confetti. But I wasn't responding, and that was driving her insane. Jenna thrived on control. She was a conductor, orchestrating the narrative so precisely that most people never heard the sour notes. But silence? My silence? That was the one thing she couldn't manipulate. And while she was busy performing online, Kevin, the PI, was performing offline. He called me at 6:13 in the morning, voice calm and clipped like always. "She's staying at the Westlake Inn," he said. "Registered under J. Collins. Paid in cash. He's with her, Cade." Full name Cade Emery. 37, unemployed, previous charge for identity fraud in Arizona. Nothing stuck. Real piece of work. I took a long breath. The name hit different when it wasn't a screen name or email handle. It had weight now. A face. A history. And Kevin wasn't done. I got photos. 2 nights ago, they were at the Coldwater Bar. She used her card, tried to. Declined. He ended up paying in cash. Argument in the parking lot after. Loud. He sent me a few stills. Jenna in that same red jacket, hair tied up, glaring at him under the yellow light of a busted street lamp. His hands were raised, open, either pleading or backing off. I couldn't tell. Then the next photo. Her, crying on the hood of a silver Corolla that wasn't hers. My first reaction wasn't pity. It was confirmation. She hadn't traded up. She hadn't run to some better life. She jumped into a car driven by a con artist, driven by delusion. She thought the grass was greener. Turns out it was just AstroTurf over a sinkhole. I filed the photos. Every detail mattered. Because yesterday, the sheriff served her. She hadn't expected it. She never expected anything from me anymore. That was her fatal mistake. She still thought I was that passive man who nodded through arguments and brought home flowers after being blamed for things I didn't do. But I had changed. She was at the motel when they handed her the envelope, divorce petition, asset list, notarized timeline of abandonment, and, most beautifully, a cease and desist for slander and unauthorized access to property. All wrapped up with a bow. She tried to call. 3 times. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, phone face down, sipping black coffee in silence. Let her feel it. Let her sit in that motel room, her fantasy burning down around her, with a man she barely knew, with no bank access, no car, no reputation left to salvage, and worst of all, no one fighting to pull her back. Later that afternoon, Kevin sent me one last clip. This one made me pause. It was recorded at the motel parking lot. Kevin had a dash cam rig that caught audio. "Cade, you didn't say he'd lock you out of everything." "Jenna, I didn't think he would. He was never like this before." "Cade, well, I'm not your bank, Jenna. You promised you had money." "Jenna, I do. I just need time." "Cade, nah. I'm not in this for some broke housewife drama. You clean up your mess, then call me." A beat. Then the car door slammed, and Cade drove off. That was the last frame. Her standing there, phone in hand, jaw set, alone in the dying light of a motel lot with nothing but her lies echoing around her. I should have felt satisfaction, but I didn't. I felt clear. Not happy, not proud, but clean, like the air after a storm, wet, sharp, honest. For the first time in years, I wasn't choking on her perfume and her gaslighting. I wasn't being lied to through tight smiles and fake affection. I wasn't second-guessing my own gut. I was just me again. And while she was spiraling, I was setting foundations. I took the day off work. Started moving things into a storage unit under my name. Spoke to my lawyer again. Opened a new account. Refiled the house insurance. Stripped her off every document like she'd never existed. She erased herself the second she walked out that door with her middle finger in a text and a guy named Cade in her rearview. Now I was just making it legal. But deep down, I knew she wasn't finished. Women like Jenna don't go quietly. She was planning something. I could feel it in my bones. And whatever it was coming. The first real punch came not from her, but from my boss. It was Friday. I was halfway through a concrete order out in the yard when Ron, my supervisor, waved me over with that stiff, uncomfortable look men wear when they've been told something they didn't want to hear but were forced to pass on. "Travis," he muttered, glancing around like you didn't want anyone to hear. "You okay, man?" I shrugged. "Sure. Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "You know. Jenna called the office this morning." I froze. The clipboard in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 20 pounds. "What?" "She said you've been unstable. Said you're going through a rough time and might need some personal days. She hinted at you having episodes." I stared at him. "She told you that?" He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Not just me. She asked to speak to HR. Said she was your emergency contact and that she was worried about your mental health. She used all the buzzwords: unstable, erratic, possible substance abuse. Said you've been paranoid lately." My stomach turned cold. That wasn't damage control. That was sabotage. She was trying to plant seeds. Make me look crazy. Unreliable. Dangerous. Maybe so when the court date came, she looked like a saint who tried to help her poor, unraveling husband. Ron lowered his voice. "Travis, we've worked together for 7 years. I told them it didn't sound like you. But HR has to file a report anyway. You might get asked to talk to someone." Of course. Because even when I stayed silent, she played the noise. I walked back to my station without another word. My pulse was ticking in my ears. My hands clenched so tight I left nail marks in my palm. It all made sense now why she'd gone quiet after Kate left her at the motel. Why she hadn't posted anything online for a full day. She'd started moving underground. She knew the sheriff's notice had damaged her image. That she couldn't beat me with public sob stories anymore. So she started playing dirty. Later that night, I checked the home's smart alarm history. Jenna had tried logging into the system. Twice. From a motel IP address outside town. Both attempts were blocked. Then I checked the Nest app. That's when I saw it. At 3:09 a.m., a motion alert from the side alley. The camera caught a shadow moving past the gate. Slim figure. Hoodie up. Flashlight beamed for 2 seconds before it disappeared. I zoomed in. The gate hadn't been breached, but the lock had been scratched. She'd come back. Not to talk. Not to reconcile. To get in. I forwarded the clip to Kevin. Within 10 minutes, he replied with a still frame overlay timestamped. Face half visible. Definitely her. That same night, someone called the city's zoning office pretending to be me, trying to file a temporary change of ownership for the property. The form was flagged. Incomplete. Suspicious. She wasn't just lashing out emotionally anymore. She was trying to rewrite records. She wanted the house. Or at least enough leverage to make me bleed for it. The next morning, I contacted the sheriff's office and filed an official report for unauthorized surveillance attempts and identity interference. Kevin prepped a second folder, one he labeled, half-jokingly, preemptive strike package. But it didn't stop there. At 1:26 p.m., I got a knock at my door. This time, it wasn't Jenna. It was a woman in her late 40s, tin pantsuit, tight bun. Social worker. She flashed a badge and a brittle smile. "We received a call concerning potential distress at this residence. Would you mind answering a few questions?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "Let me guess, an anonymous tip?" Her smile didn't move, but her eyes flicked. "We can't confirm the identity of the caller. But it's routine. Just checking in." I let her inside. Showed her my living room. My kitchen. My dog. My fridge stocked with more bottled water and leftovers than most college dorms. No drugs. No evidence of mental collapse. No guns strewn across the table. No alcohol, aside from a 6-pack untouched in the garage. She took some notes. Asked a few questions about work, sleep, emotional well-being. I told her I was in the middle of a divorce and that one party was bitter. She nodded like she'd heard that story 100 times. Before she left, she hesitated at the door. "Just for the record," she said, "we've seen people do a lot worse during custody cases." "I don't have kids," I replied. She blinked. "No?" The call implied there was a child present. And there it was. Jenna had lied. Created an imaginary child. Claimed I had one here. Just to trigger an emergency welfare check. It was a test run, to see how far she could push without getting caught. I stood there after the woman left, door still half open, watching a breeze move the porch swing. She wanted war? Fine. But she forgot one thing. You don't start war with a man who's already lost everything he ever gave a damn about. Because that man has nothing left to lose. And she just handed him permission to burn everything down. The first real crack in her mask didn't come from her voice or her face. It came from her silence. No more Facebook posts. No middle-of-the-night Ring camera prowling. No fake tears to my mother. No wild accusations to HR. No gaslighting voicemails asking if we could meet and talk like adults. Just quiet. That terrifying kind of quiet. The kind that means something is brewing. By then, I'd started locking the gate with a steel chain, not just the padlock. Moved a second camera above the garage, this one hidden, disguised as a motion sensor. Put bolts on every window she ever used to crack open for air. I was sleeping with one eye open, because Jenna had officially slipped into a territory I hadn't imagined we'd ever reach, full-blown sabotage mode. No more pretending to be the wounded wife. She'd torn off that costume, left it at the motel, and started dressing like the villain she truly was. I just didn't expect her next move to be so public. It happened at a diner. Saturday morning, 8 a.m., same place I'd been going for years. That kind of greasy spoon where the waitress knows your name and how you like your eggs. I was halfway through a stack of pancakes when the bell over the door jingled and half the room turned to look. She walked in like she owned the place. Hair curled, red lipstick, tight jeans, black heels. I almost didn't recognize her at first, not because she looked different, but because she walked in with him. Cade. Tall, smug, fake swagger in his stride. A cheap watch on his wrist, sunglasses propped like he was trying to be someone he wasn't. He was talking too loud, probably trying to look like a man in charge. They sat at the table right across from me. She knew I went there. Every weekend. She did it on purpose. At first, I thought it was coincidence. But then she smiled. Not the sweet smile I fell in love with 12 years ago, the sharp one. The one with venom curled at the edges. The smile she used when she wanted to be seen. She leaned in and kissed him across the table. Made a little show of it. Touched his hand, laughed too hard. All of it staged. All of it for me. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. I just kept eating, slow and calm, even though my fork felt like lead in my hand. The waitress, Mandy, leaned in and whispered, "Want me to move you?" "No," I said. Let her perform. Because I knew something she didn't. The guy she was parading around like some trophy? Kevin had already dug up his file. Cade Emery, unemployed, on probation, known alias in 3 states. Eviction history. Credit score so bad it could set off smoke alarms. And the cherry on top? 2 sealed civil suits for coercion and financial fraud, both involving married women. She thought she was holding a hand of aces, but I'd already seen the cards. They were all blank. Halfway through breakfast, I stood up, paid in cash, and walked past their table. She looked up, met my eyes, smirked. I stopped for 1 second, looked right at Cade. You're the second man in 2 years who thought she was worth ruining your life over. The first one's still recovering. He opened his mouth, but I didn't give him time to speak. I turned and walked out. By the time I got back to the house, Kevin had sent over another file. This time, it was her text history. He traced her new number to a prepaid burner. Somehow, she was still in contact with a man listed only as R. Dozens of messages. He doesn't suspect anything yet. Cade's temporary. Or is the real plan? Once I'm back in the house, it's just a matter of time. Back in the house. That phrase hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't just playing for attention anymore. She was strategizing, plotting how to get back inside, how to lay roots again. Maybe not because she wanted me, but because she wanted control. And Cade? He was just a distraction, a placeholder, maybe even bait. But this R. This was someone else, someone hidden. I called Kevin. You find anything about this, R, yet? He sighed. Not yet, but I will. I hung up and walked into the garage, stared at the cabinets we never finished repainting. That broken leaf blower she always nagged me to fix. The shovel leaning against the corner. And I realized something. This house was a battlefield. Every chair, every drawer, every damn socket had memories tied to her. Tied to us. And every one of them was now a mine I had to carefully step around. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, reviewing footage, watching angles, tracking her phone pings through the GPS she didn't know I'd tucked inside the lining of her old gym bag, the one she apparently gifted to Kate. And as I watched the dot move through the city, circling familiar roads, slowing near the house, speeding past again, I knew something was coming. She was planning a return. Not emotional, not tearful, strategic. And if she thought I was just going to let her walk back in like a woman scorned, crying about closure and misunderstanding, she was about to find out what real silence feels like. The kind that ends things. It happened just before dawn. I was on the porch with a cup of coffee gone cold in my hands, watching the sky shift from black to bruised purple, when I saw the movement down by the hedges. Not loud, not fast, just deliberate. Someone trying not to be seen. Ranger growled before I even stood up. I knew it was her. I knew it like I knew my own name. I didn't grab a bat, didn't call the cops. I just walked back inside, flicked off all the lights, and waited. She was bold, I'll give her that. After everything, after court papers, after public humiliation, after faking wellness checks and workplace complaints, Jenna still believed she had a right to this house. She still believed she could take it back. But what she didn't know was that this house wasn't just protected by cameras anymore. It was armed with a new alarm system, silent alerts, motion sensors hidden in the eaves, two-way audio mics patched into my phone. So when she slipped the spare key into the garage side door, yes, the old spare, the one I left on purpose, I was already watching her on the app. She crept in, flashlight off, hoodie on, a backpack over her shoulder. She moved straight for the basement stairs. I could guess what was in the bag. Documents, maybe. Tools. Or worse, some kind of stunt to make me look unstable. Planted drugs? Stolen items? Evidence she could find later and show to the court? She wasn't just reckless now, she was desperate. And people do stupid, dangerous things when they're desperate. But she picked the wrong man to play hero against. I let her go halfway down the stairs before I hit the lights. They blazed on, every bulb in the house, all at once. Flooded her in white. She froze mid-step, eyes wide like a raccoon caught in a trash bin. And then I stepped out from the hallway. Calm, barefoot, holding my phone. You lost? I asked, voice dead quiet. She stared at me like I was a ghost. Maybe I was. Maybe she expected to find the old Travis, the soft one. The man who made her smoothies and fixed her flat tire and smiled even when she spat venom. But he wasn't here anymore. Travis, she said, voice catching. Don't lie, I said, raising a finger. Don't you dare lie to me in my own home. She blinked hard, hands twitching at her sides. I forgot something, that's all. Something in the crawl space. Sure you did. I just wanted to grab it before things got worse. Worse for who? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She wasn't used to this version of me. She didn't know how to manipulate it. I wasn't angry, wasn't yelling, wasn't pacing or threatening. I was just present, watching. That scared her more than anything. I lifted my phone and tapped a button. From the speaker above her head came a loud chime. Kevin's voice, crystal clear, pre-recorded. Unauthorized entry has been logged. Police will be notified in 60 seconds. She spun around like she could outrun the walls themselves. I swear, I wasn't going to do anything. Travis, please, don't call the cops. Please. I walked down a step, just enough to make her backpedal. You already did this, Jenna. You called them on me. You said I was unstable, that there was a child here. You tried to have my job put under investigation. You lied to my mother. What did you think was going to happen now? Tears welled up in her eyes. Real? Fake? Hard to tell with her anymore. Maybe even she didn't know. I panicked, she whispered. You were cutting me out of everything. I was scared. Kate left. I had nowhere else. You had choices. You made yours. And then I did something I'll never forget. I stepped aside, opened the door behind me. Go. She didn't move. I won't press charges, I said. But if I see you within 20 feet of this property again, it's over. Next time, I don't make deals. Next time, I press everything. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I'd scream or grab her or try to fix it, beg her to explain. But I'd already buried the man who would have done that. She walked past me, slow, her eyes scanning the walls, the photos, the space that used to be hers. A final inventory. When the door closed behind her, I leaned against it. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. I felt clean. Kevin called 10 minutes later. She's already texting someone named R. Didn't work, she wrote. He's different now? Cool. I asked, you got an ID on R yet? He paused. Yeah, he said. You're not gonna like it. Try me. R is her lawyer. Robert Madsen. Real sleazeball. Handles divorce cases. Known for dragging things out. Painting husbands as abusers. Emotionally unstable. I closed my eyes. So that was the endgame. She wasn't here for closure. She was here to trigger me. To make me snap. To catch it on camera. To have something to twist in court. But she failed. Because when you've already lost the person you loved, you stop playing to win them back. You play to end it. And I wasn't going to let her write one more word in my story. She filed 2 days later. The envelope came in a manila folder with my name typed in block letters, delivered by a courier in a navy vest who didn't even make eye contact. I opened it slowly, like a bomb I already knew was armed. Inside, a formal petition to contest the divorce on grounds of emotional neglect, mental instability, and my recent erratic behavior, with a motion for temporary occupancy of the house. She wanted back in. Not forever, just enough to rattle the cage. Just long enough to claim tenant rights. To wedge herself legally into my space like a cockroach behind the drywall. And there it was, in print. Respondent has a history of controlling behavior and isolationist tendencies. He removed petitioner's access to all joint funds, communication channels, and property without due process. That phrase, without due process, made me laugh. Bitter, low, dead in the gut. This woman who left me by text, who ran off with another man and tried to fake a child's existence to trigger a wellness check, was now accusing me of betrayal. But she wasn't stupid. She was building a paper trail. It didn't have to be true. It just had to sound true. And worse? She had that lawyer, Robert R. Madsen. Kevin had finally pulled his full profile. 3 decades of nasty divorce work. Clients mostly women. Known for bleeding husbands dry, dragging out proceedings until the man either cracked or folded. Former clients called him the bleeder. He'd been sanctioned twice for courtroom theatrics. Once for submitting fabricated texts that magically disappeared later. And now he was hers. I stared at the paperwork for a while. Read every line. Every lie. Every twisted half-truth and implication carefully worded to paint me as a monster. It should have made me furious. But all I felt was the weight of focus. Because now it was clear, this wasn't about heartbreak. It wasn't about love or revenge. It was about control. Jenna had lost her grip on me. And like any addict, she was trying to get just one more hit. So I responded. Not with anger. Not with begging. With a counter-motion. My lawyer, Valerie, filed it the same day. She'd been building a case since the minute Jenna stormed out, and now she unloaded it all like a shotgun blast. We included video footage of Jenna entering the property uninvited twice, screenshots of her threatening texts, including the original "good luck paying the mortgage" bomb, her social media posts collected and timestamped, the GPS pings from her burner phone the night she circled the house for over an hour, and the piece de resistance, a notarized statement from Cade Emery, voluntarily submitted the day after he found out Jenna used his name on a credit application behind his back. Turns out, she tried to lease a car in his name. He bailed the second she mentioned loan paperwork and just a quick signature. Kevin tracked him down, paid him a visit. Cade was more than willing to talk once he realized he could get out of any civil trouble if he cooperated. His statement was damning. He confirmed she'd spoken openly about trying to push her husband into snapping, said she bragged about having a strategy to win the house, and that she told him exactly how to act in front of me at the diner. It wasn't just an emotional affair. It was a con. She'd weaponized infidelity, turned betrayal into leverage. And now she was trying to finish the job with legal ink. But it was already too late. Valerie scheduled the emergency hearing for 3 days later. Courtroom. Judge. No games. Just facts. And Jenna? She must have sensed the shift. Because that night, she came back one last time. Not sneaking. Not crawling. Knocking. I opened the door to find her standing there. No makeup. No fake smile. No Cade. Just her. And a small duffel bag slung over one shoulder. She didn't speak. Just looked at me like she was trying to read a sentence that wasn't written in words. Then, can I come in? No. A pause. I just want to talk. Then talk. She looked down at her shoes. Things got out of hand, she said. I didn't mean for it to turn into war. But it did. I miss us. No, you miss access. Her eyes snapped up, sharp again for just a flash. You think you're better than me now? No, I said quietly. I think I finally see you. That landed harder than anything I could have screamed. She took a breath, stepped back, the fight in her fading. This doesn't have to get worse, she said, almost pleading. I nodded slowly. You're right. It doesn't. But you made it this way. You came at me with lies. With poison. You had your shot at peace, Jenna. You torched it. She swallowed. Hard. Then turned, walked back to the sidewalk. No ride waiting. No plan left. I watched her go until she disappeared down the block. And when I stepped back inside, I didn't lock the door behind me. I slammed it. The morning of the hearing, the sky was iron gray. No sun, no wind. Just heavy clouds hanging low like they were holding their breath. I woke up early. Not out of nerves, out of clarity. This was the day. The day. I showered, shaved, ironed my shirt. Not for her. For the judge. For the truth. For the moment that would finally put a nail in the warped coffin of our so-called marriage. Ranger sat by the door while I tied my shoes, ears twitching, sensing the weight in the air. The courthouse was nearly empty when I got there. COVID protocols still limited attendance, which was a blessing. I didn't need an audience. Just a decision. Valerie met me in the lobby. She looked calm, sharp as ever, her binder thick with evidence. She's here, she said. Jenna. She walked in 5 minutes later, right on cue. She wore white. White, like this was her redemption arc. The soft sweater, the hair in a bun, no jewelry, no nails. The image of a calm, wounded woman. She looked like she was auditioning for a forgiveness she hadn't earned. Her lawyer, Madsen, was even more smug than I expected, silver hair, shark smile, than like he lived in a tanning booth. He carried a sleek leather briefcase like it held a golden sword. I caught him glance my way like I was prey. I smiled at him. A quiet, tired smile. Because I knew something he didn't. They still thought I might crack. They didn't know I'd already broken. And come back stronger. We entered the courtroom. The judge, Honorable Lisa B. Farrell, was in her late 50s, sharp-eyed, and with zero tolerance for nonsense. She didn't smile when she entered. Didn't even glance at Jenna's performance of sadness. Just opened the folder and said, All right, let's get to the point. Madsen went first. He opened strong, painting Jenna as confused, displaced, emotionally neglected. Claimed I cut her off financially, used advanced surveillance technology to invade her privacy. That I humiliated her by weaponizing old mistakes, and that she only returned to the property because she was scared and had nowhere else to go. She was locked out of her own home, he said dramatically, deprived of her stability, her dignity. Judge Farrell cut him off. Was she on the title deed, sir? Madsen paused. No, Your Honor. But she. Then legally, she has no claim to occupancy at this stage. He opened his mouth to respond, but she waved him down. Noted. Continue. He shuffled papers. Tried again. We are requesting temporary reinstatement to the property for the duration of the divorce proceedings. That's when Valerie stood up. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't pace. Just opened the binder and placed a stack of documents neatly on the desk. This is a full timeline of events. Included are the following. Video footage of 2 separate illegal entries into the property, one of which was at 3 in the morning. A statement from a private investigator confirming intent to provoke my client emotionally. Text messages between Ms. Collins and a third party, one of which states, quote, Once I'm back in the house, it's just a matter of time. She let that hang in the air for a moment. Then she added the gem. We also have a signed affidavit from Mr. Cade Emery, confirming that Ms. Collins used his identity to attempt to access new credit, and that she admitted to fabricating a welfare concern call to authorities about a non-existent child to damage my client's reputation. You could feel the ear shift. Judge Farrell raised an eyebrow. Is this affidavit notarized? It is, Valerie said, sliding it across. Jenna shifted in her seat. For the first time, the performance cracked. She glanced at Madsen, who leaned in to whisper furiously, flipping pages like he was chasing something that wasn't there. Then came the coup de grace. Valerie handed over a slim USB drive. Your Honor, this contains the Nest Cam footage of the defendant attempting to access the basement with a backpack after weeks of no contact, despite a cease and desist. It also includes the audio alert triggered when the system was activated and the verbal warning issued by my client's security system. Was law enforcement notified? They were informed and stood by, though my client chose not to press charges at the time. Farrell plugged in the USB and watched 30 seconds of the clip. Jenna lit up the screen in full color, hoodie up, eyes darting in the dark, fumbling with the safe door. Matson tried to object. Your Honor, this seems excessive. Farrell raised her hand. No. What's excessive is someone trying to re-enter a property that does not legally belong to them during a divorce they initiated, while also falsifying a welfare concern to social services. That is excessive. The silence that followed was nuclear. When the hearing ended, the decision came swiftly and brutally. Motion denied. Restraining order pending. All communication to go through legal counsel. Jenna had 48 hours to submit an itemized list of possessions she wished to retrieve under third-party supervision. It was over, not the divorce. That part would take time. But her power? Her narrative? Dead. She didn't look at me as we left the courtroom. She stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow her. Outside, Valerie shook my hand. You did good, she said. But I didn't feel good. I felt empty. Not in a broken way. In a clean way. Like the last poison had finally drained. I went home. Let Ranger out into the backyard. And for the first time in months, I let myself breathe. It didn't end with the judge's gavel. People think that when you win a hearing, the villain slinks off into the shadows and the credits roll. But with Jenna, there were no clean exits. Just smoke, mirrors, and one last poison dart waiting in the dark. 40 hours after the court ruling, I got a call from Kevin. I was halfway through fixing the fence gate, still in my work jeans, sun stinging my neck, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. You're going to want to sit down, Kevin said. I didn't. What is it? She's in contact with Robert again, her lawyer. But that's not the problem. The problem is, she's also been talking to someone at your office. She's been fishing. Fishing for what? For a story. I didn't get it at first. Then Kevin dropped the name. Paige. My coworker. The same woman I'd once given a ride home when her car battery died. The same woman who happened to be in HR now. Jenna had reached out to her, under the guise of concern. Said she was worried about me. Wanted to make sure I was being treated fairly. She wasn't just fishing. She was planting. I called Ron that same night. Told him everything. Showed him the email trail. We sat in his office with the blinds half down, both of us sick with the realization that she'd tried to turn my own workplace into a witness stand. She wanted me fired. Because losing in court wasn't enough. She needed to ruin me. But it was too late. Ron, to his credit, backed me completely. HR was already suspicious after Jenna's last anonymous tip. Paige had forwarded the email for review. And this time, there was a direct request. If Travis says anything that sounds unstable, or if you hear anything concerning, please document it. I'm collecting information to protect myself in case things escalate. Collecting information. Like I was a criminal. Like I was an unpinned grenade. Ron printed the email. Handed it to me. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the words. And then I laughed. Not out of humor. Not even bitterness. Out of disbelief. Jenna had gone so far off the rail she couldn't even see the tracks anymore. She wasn't just trying to survive, she was trying to leave claw marks on every surface as she sank. But she didn't realize what she'd actually done. She just handed me something priceless. Intent. Her message, her wording, her ongoing contact with a known private legal rep, after the judge barred communication, violated the spirit, if not the letter, of the ruling. Valerie filed an injunction within 24 hours. By the time Jenna got served again, I imagine it felt like getting hit by a truck she never saw coming. And this time, I didn't have to lift a finger. She showed up at the house one last time, escorted by a third-party supervisor. A woman named Marcia, who had all the warmth of a DMV printer. Jenna didn't even make eye contact as they packed her things. Some clothes. Old photos. A few heirlooms I never touched. Funny, really. After all her screaming about the house, about what was hers, she took only 2 boxes. Marcia handed me the inventory sheet. Jenna signed it with a stiff hand. I held the door open. As she stepped through it, this woman I once called my wife, the woman who used to sleep on my chest and trace the freckles on my arm like constellations, she paused. Was any of it real? She asked. Her voice wasn't cruel this time, just quiet. I didn't answer right away. Because yes, it was real. Once. But love dies when respect is murdered. And she'd stabbed it over and smiled while she twisted the knife. So I said, it was. Until it wasn't. She flinched like that hurt worse than a slap. And then she left. No drama. No final scream. Just the soft click of a door closing. Ranger lay down in the hallway, watching me. He didn't bark. He just blinked slowly, like he understood. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared at the silent house. No traps. No lies echoing off the walls. No fake apologies or broken promises pressed into the furniture like grease stains. Just quiet. The real kind. I opened my laptop, opened the folder labeled Final, and renamed it. Jenna, closed. But there was still one more thing to do. And she had no idea it was coming. It arrived 2 weeks later, wrapped in a clean white envelope with her name in raised print across the front, formal, sharp, impossible to ignore. Inside was no threat, no plea, no insult, just truth. A single notarized statement, a check, and a final letter from my attorney, signed and sealed. As per the agreed settlement, this resolves all claims, past and future. Ms. Collins waives any further pursuit of property, spousal support, or appeal. Full release effective immediately. Funds included are for therapy reimbursement, as requested. Yes, she tried to request reimbursement for therapy. For the emotional damage of being caught. She didn't get a cent. But I included something else in that envelope. Something she wouldn't expect. The check was for $1. Just one. Not to mock her, but to define her. That's what it all amounted to. Her lies. Her betrayal. The sabotage. The attempts to frame me, ruin me, sneak back and under new terms. The months of gaslighting and deception. The planted stories. The midnight break-ins. The fake concern to my job. The fabricated child. It was worth $1. And that dollar was certified. Traceable. Frameable. The final proof that she had no power left over me. And attached to it, a note in my handwriting. For services rendered. You taught me what to never accept again. No signature. Because she didn't need to hear from Travis, the man she married. She needed to hear from Travis, the man she created. That same day, I took a walk through the neighborhood. The leaves were turning. Gold and red and burnt orange. Everything shedding. Everything dying, so it could come back stronger. I passed the diner. Mandy waved from the window. I passed the hardware store where Ron had helped me pick out a new drill 2 months ago, right before things got bad. I passed the old church where we'd gotten married. The doors were locked now, boarded for renovations. The paint peeled on the shutters. I stared at it for a minute. Felt nothing. Back home, I opened the final file from Kevin. He'd found R. Robert Matson, her attorney, had been under quiet investigation by the state bar for ethical violations. Nothing criminal, yet. But messy, sloppy, and more importantly, he had one recorded conversation where Jenna spoke about needing to make Travis lose his temper just once. Just enough. Kevin had it on audio. We didn't need it in court. I'd already won. But I kept it. Labeled the file, insurance. Just in case. That night, I lit a fire in the backyard. One of those metal fire pits she always complained about, said the smoke got in her hair. I tossed in the last few things I'd saved from the wreckage. The wedding invite she'd designed. A printed photo of our trip to the coast, where she'd already been texting someone else behind my back. A copy of her first fake welfare tip-off. And the red hoodie she wore the night she broke in. It all went up in orange and blue, and then nothing. Ranger lay at my feet. The stars were out. And I swear, I don't mean this metaphorically, I could finally hear myself breathe. A full, steady breath with no catch in the middle. No fear, no anger, no questions, no lies left to untangle. Just oxygen. She tried to turn my life into a courtroom, a battlefield, a graveyard. And somehow, in doing so, she handed me the key to the one thing she never had. Freedom. It didn't come through revenge, or fury, or even justice. It came when I realized I didn't need to beat her. I just needed to end her place in my story. And I did. For $1. And every last piece of my piece.